I was just tucking into my Christmas turkey, thinking about the wonderful Christmas dinner I'd had and the company that I'd was involved with all the people around the table, you know, the family and friends and those sort of things. And I was thinking about the families across the nation on this Boxing Day, as this video goes out, who may well be eating the remnants of their Christmas dinner and picking up from looking at the toys and things that they've had or the presents that they've been given and some of the thoughts that have surrounded them over this Christmas period. Perhaps they've been looking back at the year and discussing it with members of the family who they haven't seen, because families these days are so spread out across the land, and it's lovely once a year at the very least to get together and have a good old chinwag and put the world to rights. And it struck me, I wonder if people's been discussing some of the strange policies that has been dished out to us, you know, these 20-mile-an-hour speed limits, the amount of cameras and surveillance, the idea that we need 5G to improve ourselves and download videos in next to no time. And of course, this concept of a digital ID, that everything's got to be digitised and that our data can be shared around all sorts of departments, not only within the government, but in many of those dubious third-party companies that are employed by the government, whom we don't know, but they seem to know all about us and can have access to our data. And of course, the advent of these CBDCs, the central bank digital currency, which would see all our ability to buy spontaneously and in private disappear, because every transaction would be basically being given the green light from these banks and indeed the government, depending on our certain status in the world and whether we've been good or bad or been thinking bad things. And then, of course, there's these other things such as the net zero policy, that suicide pact in which everything's got to be turned into electric, and all diversification of other power sources eliminated, which does in and of itself seem crazy, because it would suddenly give the monopoly of control to those people who have the knob of electricity, and it could, of course, turn things off. And I just wondered whether, with all this sort of weird stuff that's going on, and of course the medical intervention that's been pushed down people's throat left, right and centre and encouraged to get boosted every 2 seconds, whether people are beginning to think, hang on a minute, this is strange, this is a very top-down sort of governance that we've got here. And whether people started to think, I thought to myself, I wonder, wouldn't it be interesting if people gathered together, you know, and discussed these sort of things, but instead of discussing them round the Christmas table, maybe they got together in village halls or in the parish rooms, you know, as a town and village up and down the countryside, and said, hang on a second, look, isn't this the wrong way round? Surely it should be the people. The people are making the demands of what they want and telling the government, the administration, to go and do it. After all, the people came first, did they not? Man and women were here on this land thinking, hang on a minute, there's a lot of us, we're a bit disorganised, some of us are trying to learn different skills. I want to be a blacksmith, for example, you want to be a farrier, you perhaps want to be a carpenter, a candlestick maker, a baker, and so on and so forth. We haven't got time to administer everything, so maybe what we need is some representatives to take our ideas to the administration, and then we fund the administration to just go and do the things that we want to make our lives much easier. After all, as I say, man and women came first, did they not? And if man and women came first, as we all know that they did, and then they come up with the concept of some administration, surely that administration is below, in authority, man and woman. And so that seems to me to take the fact that actually it should be the men and women who demand the policy. We want this and we don't want that. And they tell their representatives, you know, the MPs, who are the members of Parliament, who are there to take the ideas of the people back up the chain to the executive and say, actually, this is what my constituency wants. And I wonder what would happen if actually we started to do that, rather than have this, oh, the government want to implement this, more cameras, more surveillance, more anti-human policies. In fact, you know, a little old lady steps out of her home with a dog and somebody is given the authority, so-called, to go up and say, have you got a poo bag? Have you? Have you got a poo bag? You haven't? Right, name, address, we're going to fine you £100. That doesn't seem to be a way to run a country, does it? That doesn't seem to be the way that we've wanted the country to be run. I mean, we might want clean streets, of course, but that's not a very humanistic way to go and treat it, to penalise a little old lady instead of saying, look, we're just trying to keep the streets clean. Have you got some interest? Oh, you have. Don't worry about it. But next time, and if your dog does do something about it, would you mind going back a bit later on and cleaning it up as soon as you could? I mean, speaking nicely to somebody is a better way of doing it than just charging them blandly £100. I mean, we're taxed to the heaven. Are we not supposed to be having street cleaners? Is that what part of our council tax, for example, is supposed to be doing there, to ensure that somebody is out there? We're paying somebody out of the money that we pay every month. So it seemed to me that wouldn't it be, kind of a sensible idea if actually people are not happy with these anti-human policies that are coming down from the top, that we remind the government nicely, honourably, peacefully, that actually we're the ones in charge. We're the ones that voted for you, we elected you, and we pay for you, and we pay your wages, and we pay our taxes if they are right and fair and proper and are not against the law, such as funding wars that none of us actually asked for. So maybe the people of the towns and the villages and indeed the cities, maybe they ought to get together into their little meeting rooms and parishes and decide the policies that they want for this country, for their own area, and then go back to their representatives and say, excuse me, we pay your wages. This is what we demand. We demand. Now you go and represent us. That's your job. You are but a mouthpiece for our ideas. And then let them go into Parliament, into the House of Commons, and represent the people and say to the executive, well, this is what the people want and we must deliver on it. They pay our wages. And see how the executive will go, hang on a minute, this is a bit of a turnaround, isn't it? I thought we made the order. No, of course not. You don't make the orders. The MPs, quite rightly, should be separate from the executive, from those who are there to ensure that what the people want actually get done. So the executive can't turn around and say, no, we're not doing this, we're going to... The MPs should be holding the big politicians to account and say, actually, mate, this is what the constituents want. Because if we don't get it, I get voted out and they'll find somebody else who'll do it. You'll get voted out if you don't do it. This is the way it should be, I think, surely. People across the country round the Christmas table, as they demolish the remains of their turkey and cold ham and their Christmas pies and their mince pies and all the rest of the finery, should be thinking to themselves, actually, going forward into the new year, perhaps it is down to us to make the changes. It is down to us to demand the changes. We pay their services. They must be reminded that they are our servants. They do our bidding and not the other way round. So when that officious member of the council or somebody dressed up in some sort of police outfit comes over and says, excuse me, I think you've been parking in the wrong place and I'm going to fine you £100, you turn around and say, hang on a second. None of the public have asked for this. This is not a policy that's come from the people that pay your wages, mate. On your bike, go and take your bits and pieces away from here and go and do what you should be doing, and that is keeping the peace and protecting the innocent. And go off and find some real crime where there are real victims. None of this sort of policy nonsense from the front. Maybe we should be gathering in these wonderful places, these spaces, these meeting rooms and these parish halls, and we decide what we want for this country, not them decide what we want. After all, we're the ones that put them there. We should be the ones that can remove them as well.